Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm here today with another short review, this time of Captain Hatteras, the second installment in Jules Verne's classic Extraordinary Adventures Early Sci-Fi Collections, which I'm taking nice and slowly. I've made a playlist of books from this series, so if you're interested in the others, be sure to check it out, although so far, at the time of this recording, it contains only 3 videos, including this one, since I'm not that far along, but it'll grow. One commenter on my previous review of 5 Weeks in a Balloon mentioned something I had already kind of suspected, which is that not all translations of Jules Verne's French novels are created equal, and the original translations from the French to English were usually not that great, and furthermore they sometimes even intentionally changed or omitted parts of the story. This commenter recommended a specific newer translation for this book, but unfortunately I was well into the older version of Captain Hatteras already at the time I received that comment. I've been following the public domain version of this book on Project Gutenberg, whose translator is not even immediately clear to me, but my guess is that it was pretty much the earliest version, since it probably has to be around 100 years old to be on Project Gutenberg. So, since I can't read French at any level of real comprehension, for future stories in this series, I'm going to do a little research to figure out which translations adhere best to the spirit and story of the original novels. So, Captain Hatteras. This is the tale of a voyage to reach the North Pole, organized by an eccentric individual named Captain Hatteras. The book was entertaining right from the start when several experienced voyagers around England received messages from this mysterious Hatteras, giving them specific instructions on how to prepare the ship called the Forward for this expedition. In fact, they're not even told what the destination will be, although Richard Shandon, the first mate and therefore first in command, aside from Captain Hatteras, accurately guesses that it's going to be an expedition to the Arctic, which he infers based on the way that the ship's being equipped. Probably this tactic of Hatteras's is to avoid intimidating the crew members by cluing them in as to how difficult this voyage will be. I'm not sure how I actually would feel about this if I was part of the voyage, although the absent Captain Hatteras also names a dog as captain until he shows up, so I think they probably had fair warning of what kind of a leader they'd be dealing with. Crazier yet, the mysterious Captain Hatteras still hasn't revealed himself by the time the expedition begins, and it's presumed that they're going to pick him up somewhere along the way, although they haven't actually received the instructions on this yet. As they move across the ocean, the acting Captain Shandon continues receiving letters from Hatteras himself. Some of the more superstitious crewmates even infer that Captain Hatteras is one and the same as his dog, a theory that Hatteras's letters have amusingly supported in subtle ways. Needless to say, the dog is not actually captain of this ship, but the voyage will be well underway and far too late to turn back before we learn what's going on. This eccentricity of the so-called Captain Hatteras, if there even is such a person, sows the seeds for a lot of the subsequent issues on this voyage, leading to additional problems as many of the crewmates begin to resent their superiors and point to Hatteras's apparent madness as a reason for mutiny. And as a reader, I found this an entertaining dynamic because although we know that Verne's tales are ultimately about the fortitude of the human spirit for exploration and adventure, I couldn't help but feel that these mutinous characters had good reason, creating this interesting tension between common sense and boldness. I'll leave it to you to discover which of these virtues wins, although you can probably guess. So that's the overall premise. Now, how is the story itself? Like Verne's other works, this story integrates a lot of elements of science, teaching its readers about real scientific concepts and about historical exploratory expeditions, while incorporating a bit of, in this case, pretty realistic fictional speculation to fill in the gaps of what humanity hadn't learned yet. We learn about the geographical logistics and obstacles of navigating around Greenland, through the Northwest Passage, and then reaching the North Pole itself. We see some of the challenges of leading a ship into a harsh climate, including at times having to basically just wait as certain areas become inaccessible during winter. And we have some encounters with wildlife of both the friendly and the hostile sort. I won't say more about that because, well, if I told you how they deal with hungry polar bears, you wouldn't even believe me. I'll just say that, like many of the other schemes in this story, it's extremely creative, although it may leave you feeling sorry for the bears. And in a number of tangential chapters that aren't directly relevant to the plot itself, we also just learn lots of interesting tidbits through the highly knowledgeable crew member, Dr. Clawbony, such as the lowest temperature ever recorded or the reasons for changing tints of seawater. Admittedly, some of the things in this book are not quite accurate given the incomplete knowledge of the Arctic regions at the time. For example, there's a certain thing about, let's just say, the geography of the North Pole that will be surprising and amusing for modern readers. But I think these anomalies just made it more fun of a read for me now in 2021. More importantly for me, though, the way Verne tells this story just really does create a sense of wonder and awe at the natural world, for places and phenomena that his readers at the time, and really most of us even today, would be unable or unlikely to ever experience in person. So I have to say he's very effective in what he does. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. In fact, it was maybe my favorite of the three I've read from Verne so far, just because the characters in this one had even a bit more personality and real conflict than in some of the other ones, where they were amusing but a little more one-dimensional. I mean, they're still frequently goofy and laughable in this story, but in such a great way. The persona of Captain Hatteras himself just gives the story a certain craziness, and maybe that's what makes me really feel this way. I did find that certain sections toward the middle of the book got a bit dull plot-wise, as there was a lot of traveling without really any interesting stuff in a plot sense happening, but this never happened for too long. Besides, although there is a plot with some unexpected twists and turns, you can pretty much tell the general course that this story is going to take. Just as in Verne's story, From the Earth to the Moon, it's not exactly a mystery where the protagonist will end up going. The real fun of this and of Verne's other stories comes more from the amusing episodic adventures that the adventurers take on the way to their destination. Adventures that I think could have actually been well suited to a serial publication format in a magazine or a newspaper, although I don't think any of Verne's extraordinary adventures were actually published in that format. Coming up next, we have what I'm going to guess is the second most famous of Verne's novels. You've probably heard of this one before. It's called Journey to the Center of the Earth. I have learned that there are a lot of versions of translations for this one, and one of those is the most heavily criticized Verne translation by his fans. So I am going to make sure that I get the real version of the book, and not the one where they basically just rewrote the story entirely. If you want to stay tuned for that one, don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, bye, and happy reading.